Hey guys, I'm Christian Arnold,
I'm Jamie Shaver.
and this is episode 2 of Emotional Nerds, season 1, where we are looking at Jungian archetypes in regard to emotions. Something we didn't cover last episode. We have absolutely no script for this. We are absolutely.
Yeah, that's why it's a podcast.
Yeah, we don't even have a plan for this episode.
I have a. Maybe you don't have a plan, but I have a plan. You don't know what's going on.
I haven't planned anything in the past 5 months. So, Jamie.
Yeah.
This episode we are covering the magician.
The magician.
Last episode we started with the hero, and the hero is the first of the three.
The three archetypes that want to leave a mark on the world.
Yes. They're referred to as different names. They use the ego archetype. I don't like using that term, especially because Mark and Pearson also use ego in regards to the different types as well. So you have the ego types, which are for the innocent everyman, hero, and caregiver, but you also have the ego orientation, which are the four orientations: the leave your mark on the world, ego, the provide structure, or the connect to others, social, and the yearn for paradise, freedom. So it gets really confusing when you use ego for both.
I didn't even know that. I thought it was just the one.
Yeah, it's been coined differently by different researchers.
Mm.
But all that aside, when looking at the magician archetype, they fit within the soul types. Do they fit within the soul types? No, delete that. One take, sure. That's great. They fit within the self types.
Yeah.
So,
I was about to say.
when regarding to the magician, their motto is that they do things, they make things happen. Their core desire is to understand the laws of the universe. They want to make dreams come true. They don't like unintended negative consequences. They develop a vision and live by it. They don't like being manipulated. They have talent for finding winning solutions, and they are usually known as the visionary, catalyst, inventor, charismatic leader, shaman, healer, medicine man. This is all according to Connor Neal, ConnorNeal.com. Now, something regarding to the magician archetype that I don't think this listed very well is the magician archetype is very consumed with this idea of power. The power to make things happen, the power to get things done, obtaining that power and using that power.
They say if it can done, it will be done, and they are what makes the can. That was an awful sentence, but you get the point.
Yes, they are the catalyst to do things. So for example, last episode when we were talking about Thanos in some lighting can be the hero archetype if you paint him that way, but more so with his ideals, with his intentions, with him wanting to leave the mark, especially with his pursuit of the Infinity Stones. There's also an argument for him to be the magician archetype, that he is chasing that power and he is the power that gets his goal done. So, in regards to the power archetype, who comes to mind for you?
This is a bit of a weird one to be the first thing that popped into my mind, but have you ever seen the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs movies? Flint Lockwood, the man himself.
Huh.
I was reading all these things about, you know, if it can't happen, it will happen. Seek ideas to make into reality and that sort of stuff. And I remember the scene in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, where the inventor boss guy, he's working for the company, he says, "Can your ideas change the world?" And then Flint Lockwood yells, "Yes, my ideas can change the world," and he gets all happy about it. That's like the first thing I thought of, and it also fits. He's real idealistic, kind of a visionary. He wants to make these things happen. Yeah. Honestly, he's a bit more of a pure character than a lot of these magician archetypes are, but yeah, I still think he definitely fits the mold.
Oh, definitely. When I think of that archetype, so I think of someone like Vegeta. And I feel like Vegeta does fit a lot in the hero archetype. Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. But early Vegeta, with the mix of his ambition to be a ruler, mix of his ambition to at one point destroy the earth, we see this character who is bent on his power and his pride as a Saiyan, and that's something I want to get to in a minute, pride. But we see him seeking the means to have power, seeking to be able to beat Goku in that fight, which is why he tries so hard to wish for the Dragon Balls to give him immortality. That's why he first obtained Super Saiyan, that rage and desire for that power. That's why he takes the Majin Mark when we see him fight against Boo.
That desire to defeat Goku that you were talking about, that still also kind of overlaps a little into the hero archetype.
It does.
Talking about, overcoming the challenge.
It does, and that's why these are so hard to say, and especially later on when Vegeta gains that desire to protect his family and stuff like that. He definitely falls into hero and caregiver there, but
I mean, it only goes to show that the best characters are going to be a mix of a lot of archetypes,
Yeah.
If a character was just one archetype, like through and through, they might be a bit less interesting.
Yeah. So, I guess my question is for the magician archetypes. I mean, we see it with Flint and Cloudy with the chance of meatballs. See with Vegeta that they both have this very strong sense of pride. Flint has a lot of pride in...
Like he believes he's the best out there. He thinks he knows what he's doing.
Thinks he knows what he's doing. Has so much pride in his machine and stuff like that. While
if you've seen that movie, he does make pretty good machines, though. Maybe he deserves that pride.
He does, but nonetheless, he's very prideful in his creations. And then we also see, and that creation also falls him into the the creator archetype, but that's for a later episode.
Way later.
But we see them both exhibit that pride over what they can do, what they want to do, and that desire for power achieved by pride. So how do you think pride as an emotion really contributes to the magician archetype?
I think it depends on which kind of pride we're talking about. Like that sort of authentic, I'm proud of what I made, look what I did kind of pride, and then also the hubristic, I'm so much better, I am this, I'm all that kind of pride.
I'll pull up a citation for that while you talk, but continue.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking, like, again, with the example of Flint Lockwood, he's a whole lot less hubristic and kind of negative in his pride. It's a bit more along the lines of being proud of what you did, being proud of your achievements. I mean, most people, if you reach a high achievement, you're going to be proud of it. That's not necessarily a bad thing. When people think of pride in a negative lens, that more so has to do with hubristic pride and kind of, I am better than everybody else. So it really depends. I mean, the magician archetype is very much privy to both of those. It's only when it's hubristic pride that when people see it as a flaw. Otherwise, it's seen as a generally good thing. So it really depends on which exactly you're talking about.
Yeah, that conflict between authentic and hubristic pride, if I could ever pronounce that word. Yeah, I'm still looking for a citation of that, but that is something we have covered in our class, and especially the difference with that as Christians, saying that pride is a negative emotion, which it's not necessarily, unless it's a hubristic pride, then definitely is.
It again depends on the type.
Okay, here we go. We find this from Charles S. Carver, Chanel Johnson, and then also, I believe first proposed by Tracy and Robbins back in 2004. Anyway, who else do we see? Well, actually, let me rephrase that. In first episode, we covered, what is his name from Dark Souls? Sigmar from Dark Souls, yes. We covered the opposite side of heroism, when one fails to meet the requirements and motivations of being the hero.
So, what about a character, a magician who fails to meet the requirements of magician? Someone who seeks for power, but they reach out and they fail to achieve it. Maybe they fall due to their own hubristic pride, like we've been talking about.
Yeah. Well, I I think there's two lines of sight when we regard to the magician failing. The magician can fail in one of two ways. The magician can fail at succeeding in the unintended way, their power being used in a way that they didn't want it used. Coming from ignorance or the hubristic pride blinding them from consequences.
I don't know if this counts as a character, but that makes me think of Oppenheimer from the recent movie.
Oh.
I know he was a real person,
Ooh.
but
Continue.
he was a real person, but for the sake of this argument, we're going to talk about, I guess, Oppenheimer as a movie character, whether or not that's actually an accurate depiction of him. But you know, his whole main character arc is the idea of him reaching higher and, you know, being able to build this. What did he build? The atomic bomb or the hydrogen bomb in the movie? I don't know which words.
I want to say atomic bomb. Yeah. I haven't watched the movie, but
and by the end of this movie, he feels such a sense of failure because he feels like what he's done has ultimately caused more harm than good in the world. He feels a real sense of a big hit to his pride. Yeah, exactly. He was throughout all of Oppenheimer. He was someone who had a lot of hubristic pride. He always believed he was number one. He always believed he was in the right, I guess you could say. That's I don't think that's explicitly said, but it's definitely kind of in the subtext of the whole thing. But
so
even at the end of the movie when he's talking to Harry S. Truman, I think he still is blaming himself for this thing, even though Truman pretty much says to his face, "Hey bro, you didn't drop the bomb. That was me." Like, even in his despair, he's still taking it all upon himself. Kind of that self-centric, kind of hubristic pride. It was all me. I can't believe I did this.
Yeah. That's good. He's a good example for what happens when that power is manipulated and used in a way that was unintended by the magician. When that short-sightedness and pride leads to that failure. Now, what I'm also curious about is what happens to the magician who can't find that power.
The magician who wants to be something, they want to be something from the bottom of their hearts, but they never amount to anything.
Yeah, and I guess in the same writing as Quagmire from
Family Guy?
No, wait, what's the name of the Dark Souls character?
Sigma. You said Quag.
I play Pokemon too much. Okay.
He's Quagsire. Yeah.
Actually, speaking of that,
also those kind of fit with Sigma.
You know what? Let's follow through on that. Let's go to Pokemon. I'm thinking of your rival in Generation 8.
Gary Oak? No, not Gary Oak. I'm thinking, what's his name?
In the Galar region.
Hop. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, is it Hop?
No, it's Hop. He's the guy who, with the purple hair. He's Leon's little brother.
Yeah. No, yeah.
He wants
I find Hop very interesting because he does seek to be the strongest trainer. And we see that competition with his brother and his competition with rival when you see hopelessness set into him midway through the game because he's not strong enough to ever beat.
But I feel like that could be ascribed a bit more to Hero than Magician. Ultimately, his main goal is to be the best, you know?
But his goal isn't...
I want to be the very best.
Is he... I guess that's another question. What separates the Hero and Magician from there? Because the Hero is seeking to be the best through mastery of themselves and stuff like that, while Magician seeks to do the best and be the best based off of power alone. I mean,
based on how what they can.
I guess going back to Link, I feel like
they can innovate on.
Yeah,
I guess.
I feel like that's the separation between Link and Ganon. Link is obviously the hero seeking for that courage and the power to do what he morally knows right, while Ganon really seeks the power, and that's why he's representing the power side of the Triforce.
Desire to have the ability to change things, to shape the world the way he wants it to be.
Maybe even the desire to be on top, which I feel falls into the ruler archetype a bit, where you want control.
Where's that?
It's under provide structure. But
is it under?
but anyway,
Is it under the label of ego or soul or self or whichever one that hero falls under?
that is a good question.
Maybe they are still related in some
Yeah,
way.
they are related because the magician and ruler are both self archetypes, where that focus is within oneself and one's own personality. So, and that's still something that I don't truly understand, the difference between the types, which is something we may cover in a later episode. May not, though. But anyway, so back to the thing with Ganon. Would you argue then that a hero without morals falls into the magician?
I think again it depends on what the core motivation is to achieve like the core thing is achieving mastery or achieving power. It depends on which one it is.
So what is the difference?
One is about overcoming challenges and persevering through, about courage, persevering through hard times, and doing so through power is more about the ability to make your own ideas reality, the ability to impose your will on the world in a positive way or a negative way.
And then on top of that idea of wanting to impose your will and be free, in a sense, also falls into the outlaw archetype.
Maybe a little bit, but not exactly in the way you're saying it, I think. Yes, being free, but it's also being free from others and being free in your ability to impose things on others as well.
I really hope this goes to show just how utterly impossible it is to truly say that any character is one archetype, because there's nuance in so many things, both in the archetypes themselves and within the characters themselves. Very rarely do you see characters that perfectly fit the definitions, especially because motivations overlap one another.
Then what are we doing? Just like out here disproving this whole thing? This whole archetype structure?
I don't think it's disproving, because I don't even think Mark and Pearson, back when they were proposing these archetypes, first they were proposing them for businesses and brands, and while they are commonly used in regards to individuals, they are also used for brands. But also, when we see them in brands, very rarely is a company only appealing to one archetype. Very rarely is the motivation really definable by one archetype. So I don't know, I think there's a lot of nuance there that a short conversation like this really can't cover. So in summary of what we have, we see that the magician archetype sees himself as this catalyst for power. They want to know the laws of the universe and they want to solve them. They don't like negative consequences. They tend to have some level of ignorance of these, and that's not really in regards to the magician, but we see that in a lot of magician archetypes. We see that in Flint, we see that in Oppenheimer, we see that in Vegeta, a bit of ignorance to consequences, and we even see that in Ganon to an extent, but
he doesn't think any sort of hero is actually going to kill him.
So they don't like being manipulated. They like having that freedom, a lot like the outlaw archetype does, which we'll get to next episode. Stay tuned. But we see that the magician is really imbued with this sense of pride, which is a very, when it's authentic pride, it's a very approach really motivation. Yeah. Hubristic pride can cause it to be pretty avoidant. But
I'm not so sure.
Hubristic can be approach or avoidant depending on if you meet your expectations.
I think the real difference is whether or not it's viewed as a good thing by society as a whole.
Whether
or not you look at this and think, oh, that's a good thing, or oh, that's a bad thing.
Yeah. So in regards to the magician, though, we see that pride, and they fail. We see that the same sense of shortcoming that we see in the hero archetype, where they feel insignificant, not good enough, or if they made a mistake, and perhaps even more so in the magician, because in the hero archetype you simply weren't good enough.
Yeah, you can simply work yourself back up and improve yourself.
Yeah,
But with the magician, it's more you've made your mark on the world. But
Yeah,
it was a negative mark.
it was my fault. It's more so that. So it's almost
almost even
it would
a
be
deeper despair.
Yeah, I would argue it's a bit more maladaptive, because instead of just that sense of lacking and that shame that may come from the apologies, my phone went out of storage, which we are using to record these first few episodes. This is the third time we're recording the outro because my phone went out of storage. So this is gonna be hopefully the only video in this whole series. It's gonna have 2 takes.
More than 2 takes. God,
we don't need to tell them that. Big thank you.
You already told them that. You said 3 times.
Oh. Big thanks to our editor Ryan for splicing this together. So to continue where we left off, we see in the magician this kind of maladaptive behavior, the idea of not only was I not good enough, and that I couldn't meet the expectation, and that shame brought forward from lacking, as quoted by Bonhoeffer, but also this idea from that pride of, wow, it is my fault.
It's like it's all me. I did the wrong. It's all my fault. Kind of like you see at the end of the Oppenheimer movie.
Yeah, and I would argue that's even worse, possibly more maladaptive than
the despair that the hero kind of feels. And it's I'm not good enough. I need to be better versus I'm not good enough. I have made a negative mark on the world.
Yeah.
When a hero fails, they have to improve. They have to be better. When a magician fails, along the lines of what I have done has harmed the world. Well, actually, now that I think about it, a hero could do that too. A hero could also harm the world, but I think it happens more commonly with magicians.
Yeah.
We see it more with them because they have more power. They have more ability to change the world as compared to a hero.
Oh, I would love to continue talking about this, but I really don't want my phone to run out of storage again.
I don't think it's gonna.
It's gonna.
Okay.
So we're gonna end this episode here. Please like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be talking about the outlaw archetype, which is my personal favorite. See ya.
Yeah. Okay. Transfer the videos to your laptop before